Non-Monogamy Help is a podcast where your questions about open, non-monogamous or polyamorous relationships are answered. Our host, Lola Phoenix, will consult a licensed therapist with over a decade of experience to address your problems. Names and locations have been changed or censored to keep your questions anonymous. You're listening to Non-Monogamy Help, the podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Non-Monogamy Help. If you would like to send me a letter, you can send me a letter at nonmonogamyhelp@gmail.com. This podcast is also a column, if you did not know, which you can read at medium.com/non-monogamy-help. And the same letters are not in the column as in the podcast, so it keeps it fresh and different. If you'd like to get the columns and the podcast in your inbox, you can subscribe to the email newsletter at tinyletter.com/non-monogamy-help, no hyphens. And if you want to be an amazing human being and you can get the podcast episodes and the columns way before anyone else, secret, you can go to patreon.com/Lola Phoenix and become my patron. And yeah, it'll be amazing. You'll get everything early and you'll be a superstar. Yeah, true feelings. Anyway, so let's get on to today's letter. Me and my boyfriend are together for over 2 years and living together for almost 1. Both of us had previous experiences with non-monogamy, so it was a no-brainer, and since the beginning we have had an arrangement of being each other's primary partner and having secondary sexual partners. But maybe it is because this is my first long-term relationship. It is also the first time I've experienced jealousy. We mostly deal with it through lots of communication and all, but I fear I may be taking some of the fun out of it for him, and it makes me feel really bad because he works hard to give me the most amount of fun. One of my biggest issues is that he doesn't really like having one-night stands or casual sex. He prefers friends with benefits because he needs to enjoy talking with a person in order to want sex. I actually have no problem with friends with benefits, and since before we started dating, my problem has been when he's been flirting with someone new. We actually had an argument over the last person he was interested in because he wanted to bail on a date he had with me to have a date with her. We solved it, but in the end he stopped pursuing her because of the argument, but also because he was already losing interest for other reasons. Well, it was almost a year ago, and after that both of us only had sex with someone else when we had a threesome. For context, neither of us has had tons of sex before. I had it with 5 people and he had it with 2, and the fact that we live together now also plays a part in making it harder for either of us to have sex outside the relationship. But I can't stop feeling guilty about how I reacted when he was looking for someone, and feeling that I am the reason he doesn't look for other people anymore. My boyfriend tells me he is fine because I have a higher sex drive. He is very much satisfied with me and does not feel like looking for other people at the moment, and says it is okay if I do. I actually feel ungrateful because he knows and respects me so much that he will go out of his way to help me feel comfortable with my sexuality and with the fact that I am a highly sexual person. He introduced me to the non-monogamy community and has loosened up one of his rules in the relationship. He does all of this, and I could not even give him some support in his pursuit. In the end, I feel a bit sexually frustrated because I miss having sex with other people, but at the same time, I feel too guilty to have sex with other people. I really don't know how to deal with those feelings. So, there's a couple of things going on in this one. First off, it's not uncommon, and it is absolutely 100% fine that you and your boyfriend are different in terms of how you like to do relationships or even hookups. That's absolutely fine. I'm in a similar situation, but reverse. I'm the kind of person where I don't really do casual hookups or things like that. I kind of prefer to have relationships with people. And it's even weird to say that to me because I feel like saying that means that the relationships that my partner, my domestic partner has with the people that he considers more casual aren't as deep when they may be. But I kind of like to have that, we're in a quote unquote relationship and there's, what it means to me is there's like more emotional support, there's a bit more commitment in what it looks like. My partner isn't really like that, and it's not to say that my partner doesn't want to have relationships, but it's just that he likes casual things, and that has a benefit for him, and that's okay. Like, I think in this situation, when you have kind of different motivations, it's sometimes hard to understand one another. And that why maybe why it's hard for you to understand or feel like you can really believe when your boyfriend is like, oh, I'm not really interested in looking for anyone now. Right now, it's not something I'm that concerned about. Like, I think I still have the same kind of situation with my domestic partner where he's sort of like, oh, you should go out, meet people, da da da. And like, occasionally I get the kind of urge to do that, but sometimes it's just like, you know what, I don't really feel up to it. It can be quite hard. I'm not saying it can't be hard to want casual things. I don't know how hard it is because it's not kind of where I'm coming from, but I kind of feel like, from my perspective, like, because I'm very romantic in how I pursue things, it can get quite sad. And if you put if you want kind of the emotional investment, and you kind of need that in order to have sex with someone, if you kind of emotionally invest in someone and then they pull away or it doesn't work out, it can be quite like emotionally difficult. So I've definitely been in that situation. So I think, like, firstly, a way to kind of dial down your guilt is to realize that your boyfriend has different motivations, and that's okay, and you don't have to have the same motivations. And also, you aren't an imbalance. You might be interested in having more casual sex. That doesn't mean that, I feel like you're kind of almost weighing this up as a tick box exercise, the way you kind of say, like, oh, I've had sex with 5 people, he's had sex with 2. Like, it's not a competition, and you always don't have to come out equal in terms of how many people you slept with. Like, if I had to come out as equal to all the partners that I've had, it just would never work, just because I just don't tend to have casual things, and that's cool, and that's fine. So that's, like, a first thing that will help. A second thing that kind of jumped out at me is, obviously, the issue that you're having is, you mentioned 2 things. One, when your partner flirts with new people, that's when you kind of experience the jealousy. And then the other thing you mentioned was that your partner wanted to bail on a date with you to have a date with another person. The first thing is that jealousy and that fear over new people it makes total sense. I know, like, a lot of people tend to feel like their emotions aren't logical, or that logic and emotion are 2 separate things, but actually it's quite logical in many situations to be emotional, because, we're not Vulcans, we're human beings, and a new person coming along is something new, and that's scary, and that's an unknown, and that is going to trigger a lot of fear, and that is totally understandable. So it's actually, even though you kind of see this as jealousy, is it jealousy? Are you really, to me, I mean, we can split hairs about this all day, because I have had discussions where I split hairs about this all day. To me, jealousy is wanting something that someone else has. That is, to me, what jealousy is. I feel like being afraid of losing your partner isn't jealousy. And I feel like so much of the beginner non-monogamy advice is so much like jealousy, jealousy, jealousy. And when people in polyamorous relationships get asked questions by, like, journalists and shit, the first thing they're like, aren't you jealous? Aren't you like, jealousy is like the big scary boogie monster that we're all trying to run away from. And I sometimes think that any bad emotion, any sadness, any fear just gets automatically tarred with this jealousy brush, even when it's not actually jealousy. I don't think you being afraid of new people is jealousy. I just think you're afraid of new things. And I think you're just starting together in this relationship. You don't have your foundations set with each other. So you're already going to feel anxious about that. This relationship is new, even though you've been together for a couple of years. It's still new in some ways. And I think you'll find, in my experience at least, over time, those fears get less and less, because you're kind of, once you're with somebody for a bit of time and you have seen that they're there for you and you've weathered problems and you've still come out of it the other end, you stop feeling so afraid. But it's perfectly logical to be afraid. But another big thing here is it's not going to help your fear if you actually have situations where you are being replaced by someone. A big thing that I try to encourage people to do is, would this bother you if it was a friend? That's kind of a thing where I think is a good way to figure out, is it the person or the behavior that's actually bothering you? Because I kind of feel like if your partner bailed on you on a date you planned together for going out with a friend, you'd still be upset. So is it really about this person? I mean, obviously, like, it being another romantic interest adds a little bit kind of a twist to the knife, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a nice thing for someone to do. And I think that's a discussion that you need to have with your partner. What are the priorities, and maybe you guys need to think about, you choose polyamory for different motivations, and sometimes it's going to be really, really hard to understand each other's motivations. But you can get together and say, okay, what does it mean for us to be, if you call yourselves primary partners, what does that mean in real physical terms? Does that mean that, you can't rearrange dates? Does it mean that, it's kind of up to you what that means, but you have to decide that, and then you have to understand your priorities and share those priorities, and then situations like this won't happen. But when you have situations like this happen, then you are going to be even more logically afraid that someone is going to come along and replace you, because you've grown up in, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you grew up in a different society than mine, but I would say most people within the same societies that I've grown up in, if monogamy is kind of the default, the idea is that, being replaced is a thing that can happen, and that, it's a competition, and monogamy and dating is all about being the best to attract the best partner, even though that's not actually the way people choose partners. But that whole thing is still going to be running in your head, so you're still going to be afraid. And then when your fears kind of come true, when you're literally being replaced, it's going to reinforce them. And it will take a while for you to dial it back. Now, the second thing I want to say is, or the third thing rather, your partner, putting aside this whole a bit in consideration for you when, replacing, I don't know what the circumstances around wanting to wanting to cancel your date for another person's date. Maybe this was the only night this other person could do it. I don't know. That was a bit inconsiderate, but everything else that your partner's doing, like, you're kind of giving him this shiny gold medal for what this person should be doing. You're acting like he's going above and beyond. He's not, with all due respect to him. I'm not trying to say he's not being a good partner. He is being a good partner, and it's what he should be. He should be emotionally supporting you. He should be not holding a grudge over you for, having a bad reaction. He should be supportive and helpful. He should be trying to work with you, even though you have differences in how your sexuality works. He should be being supportive, and you're kind of acting like he's, oh my God, he's so helpful, and I'm just this terrible human who has feelings and needs. No. Like, he's doing what he should be doing. So stop acting like emotional support is like a give and take where everything has to equal out. Sometimes one person needs more emotional support than the other. As long as that imbalance doesn't continue throughout the entire relationship or for a very, very long time and isn't a permanent fixture, then sometimes a little bit of imbalance just happens because, for example, like, say, next week someone passed away in your family and you're really, really upset. You would need more emotional support at that time. And it's not like he would be a terrible human being if he was like, okay, I gave you all this emotional support for when your family passed away. I'm going to need to collect on that debt. Like, that's not how this works. It's not a debt. It's not, you aren't a bad person for having feelings or for making, even if you had no reason to dislike this person, even if it was an outburst and you shouldn't have reacted that way and yada, yada, yada. You're allowed to be human and make mistakes, and that's kind of part of living life. And he has to, if he wants to have a relationship with someone, and if anyone wants to have a relationship with someone that isn't, I guess you can have a relationship that doesn't have any form of emotional support whatsoever. That's fine if that's how you want to do things. Doesn't sound like that's how you're doing things. So stop giving him super uber amounts of credit for just doing what he should do. I know you feel like all this guilt, but like, think about where this guilt's coming from, because he's doing what he should do, and you shouldn't have to feel guilty about it. You don't owe him anything. You don't owe him, recompense for, it's not how this works. If you stop thinking about it as a competition, then, it makes you go, oh, okay, well, he's doing what he should have been doing, so why do I have to feel guilty about the fact that he's not going out and having loads of sex with other people? Like, first of all, that's not what he wants to do anyway. And second of all, like, it's okay to feel like a little guilty. Like, I'm not trying to urge you to stop all emotions in that way either. But I think maybe you came from a situation in your life where you're not used to people doing the basics of what they should do in terms of emotional support, and I've been there, so I get that. I've been I've been in that situation of like, hey, this person doesn't hit me. They're great at relationships. But that's not where you want to be because this is what should happen. So yay, except for the whole like ditching you for another person thing. That's not what should happen. But the whole being supportive of you should happen. That's a good thing. So stop making it seem like he's going, he's slaving every day over a hot stove while you're out cavorting with the local bar. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a stereotype and it's failing. But my point is, yeah, he's doing what he should be doing, so don't feel guilty about that. And then the last thing is you're going to feel guilty, and sometimes when it comes to bad feelings or feeling bad, I shouldn't say bad feelings. It's not bad feelings, it's feeling bad. You just have to go through it, and it will get better. In my experience, whether it's sadness, anxiety, all of that, like, the only way to deal with it is to deal with it. So you're going to feel guilty. Accept that you're going to feel guilty and try your best to cope with it. And don't, because the thing about like anxiety is that if you give anxiety an inch, it will take a whole damn mile, and everything else, to be honest, it will take more than a mile. If you try to avoid the things that make you anxious, you will just, the amount of things that you can be around and it will shrink and shrink and shrink, and the amount of things that you have to avoid will grow and grow and grow. So you're going to feel guilty. So just try going out, try meeting someone, try having a casual thing and experience it, feel the guilt. You feel guilty, but you come out of it the other end, and I think when you realize that it doesn't destroy everything and that you're okay and that your partner isn't resentful and it's okay, it will get better. But I think if you avoid it, you keep avoiding it, it's just going to that guilt's just going to stay right where it is. So yeah, unfortunately, you're just going to have to bite the bullet and go through it. So yeah, to summarize, like, it's totally okay for you and your partners, you and your partner are partners, to have different motivations, different reasons why you do polyamory, different ways of doing it. It's okay that you're into more casual things. It's you just have to kind of remember when you're thinking about your partner that he doesn't want the same things as you. So the fact that he's only had sex with this many amount of people and you've had sex with more is okay. If he doesn't want that, then he doesn't want that. So try to remember that, like, both of you are valid in what you want. It's just you want different things. And it's really hard. Sometimes I have a hard time thinking that. And I think, anytime you do have that kind of, it's not an incompatibility, but it's a difference in your reasoning behind things. I think it just bears keeping in mind and remembering. Second thing is that whole, like, being replaced, bailing on a date to have with you, to have with someone else. Again, I don't know what the circumstances were around it. Maybe that he was having a date with someone and that was like the only night they can make it. But you need to have a discussion about priorities and about, about what happened. If you need a polyamory-friendly therapist, find one. But I think you need to address that and figure out why that happened and talk about your feelings about it and figure out, how to stop it from happening again. Either by you working out circumstances where it's okay to cancel or rearrange dates, or figuring out, like, okay, Tuesday's our date night, no other plans on that night. So work that out. Third, stop giving people gold medals for shit they should be doing. I think will help your guilt a lot, to be honest, because I think so much of your guilt comes from the fact that he's done so much for you and you've had this bad reaction. Like, what your reaction is understandable, and what he's doing is what he should be doing. So stop giving people gold medals for things that they should be doing anyway. And then last but not least, like, when it comes to some of this guilt, you're just gonna have to bite the bullet and go through it. I think once you kind of realize that what's happening should be happening, and he's, other than bailing on you, he's like being really supportive and that's what he should be doing, maybe some of that guilt will kind of dial it back a bit. But I do think that, you might just, sometimes brains just are trying to help, but they're not helping, and you kind of have to go through it, come out of it the other end, and say, hey, I felt pretty fucking terrible, but I survived, and nothing terrible happened, and I'm okay. Sometimes you just have to do that with some of these feelings, and then your brain will realize, oh okay, I don't need to sound the alarm for this. But yeah, I really hope this helps, and good luck. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening to episode 9 of Non-Monogamy Help. Again, I want to put another call out. If you enjoy the podcast and you enjoy the columns, I really, really want you to try and show your support by becoming a patron if you can. If you don't know anything about Patreon, it's pretty awesome. Like, literally, you can give $1 a month. You can either give like $1 per episode or $1 per episode, but I don't want to do more than $10 a month or just $1 a month. Like, it's so flexible and pretty cool. And, it's a really big support. It helps me pay for the hosting. It helps me, maybe one day I could do this as my job. That'd be kind of freaking amazing, have to say. So, if you want to show that you're supportive, and you get stuff for it, you get the podcast early, you get the columns early, way before anyone else. You get like other fiction-y bits that I write zines. And if there's stuff that you want, you can ask if you'd like. So yeah, it's a cool thing. So please do, if you have $1 a month to spare, and that's American dollars, and it translates to whatever currency is in your local area. That would be super awesome. And you can do that at patreon.com/Lola Phoenix. And that's LOLAPHOENIX. And just before I let you go, I'm starting something new at the end of the podcast for people who have pledged $5 or more, who have supported me for over a year. I'm going to be saying your names at the end of the podcast, if you say it's okay. There are a couple of people, lots of people that I've sent messages to, and I haven't got a confirmation to make sure they're okay with it. So I just want to make sure you're okay with it. Those people who have gotten back to me, who are pledging $5 or more per month and have supported me for over a year, are Laura Boylan, Chris Albury Jones, Lena Franzi, and James Wartell. Thank you so much for being awesome. If you haven't heard your name being read, please check your inbox on Patreon. You might have a message from me just making sure you're okay with it, and you can tell me which name you'd like me to use. I don't want to assume. So yeah, that's extra incentive for you to pledge $5 or more and be an amazing person. Anyway, thank you so much, and you'll get the column next week, and you'll hear the next podcast the week after next. Exciting. Thanks. You've been listening to Non-Monogamy Help. Our podcast music has been provided by Chris Albury Jones at albury-jones.com, and the art was made by Dom Jung at domduong.com. Thank you for listening.